In this video, I'll show you exactly why your faceless channel isn't growing and how to actually fix it. What I'm about to share in this video has not been shared on YouTube. So make sure to watch this whole video. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Steffen. I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars with faceless YouTube channels. And this here is just one of my faceless YouTube channels that we just recently started. This channel already made $4,500 this month or in the last 28 days. He just recently had a $300 day. And I've also helped hundreds of other people do the exact same thing. For example, Martin, we've helped to make $31,000 in one single month. Here, another student, $24,000 in one single month. Now, if you're interested in getting similar results or maybe the exact same results, check out the first link in the video description. Book a call with me and we'll see if you would be a good fit to work together. And I would say, let's get started with the video. So the first thing, and this might sound very simple, but most people still do this wrong. It's very simply, you picked the wrong niche, right? Now, before I can go deeper into that, let me first explain the criteria of a good niche. So there are under 5 smaller channels creating content in this niche that are constantly getting more views than they have subscribers. That means there's high demand and low supply. Now, what do most people do? Most people go into these super oversaturated niches, like for example, luxury or health. Obviously, in all of these niches, there is still space, right? But most people go into these huge niches. What you should be doing is you should be looking for sub-niches, right? Smaller niches within this space. Most people do not do that, and most people do not teach that. Most people will just, or most coaches will literally tell you, yeah, choose a niche. But how does a good niche actually look like? That's the question people need to ask themselves. And very simple, you're looking for niches where there's high demand and low supply. You need to start thinking about YouTube like a business, not like just a random channel you're starting to make some money, but you need to start thinking like a businessman. If you see there are already 100 pizza restaurants in a town, would you go ahead and open another one? Probably not, right? But if there's only one and it's bad pizza and the people really like pizza, then you would probably go ahead and open another one, right? That's how you should start to think. YouTube is a marketplace. Do not forget that. All right. Then there are no channels with over 100,000 subscribers. This is super important because it's always going to be very, very hard to compete against these big channels since they already have the trust from YouTube. It's almost impossible to beat a channel that's so big already at its own game, especially if you're just starting. All right. Then there are no smaller channels failing. Many people always just look at the big ones, but make sure to look at the small ones, because if they are already like 10, 20, 30 channels, small channels failing, how is your channel different to those channels that YouTube would say like, no, your channel is the one who's going to succeed, right? So make sure that there are no small channels failing, super important. Then the niche is not older than 6 months. Super, super important, because if the niche is already older than 6 months, in most cases, there are already super big channels and there are channels that are failing. All right. Then I can create better content than my competitors. Super important. This could also just be longer content, right? So it doesn't specifically need to be better, but it needs to be longer, right? Then am I actually interested in this niche? Now, this is not a must as long as you build a team that has interest in this niche. Then next up, is the niche monetizable? Super important to double check. And huge bonus if you can post long videos in the niche, because as you know, for long videos, you can put more ads, which means you will make more money. All right. Very, very simple. Now, important, give yourself enough time to do niche research and do not rush the process. Most people do not give themselves enough time. I always say, like, if you're just starting out, give yourself like 2 weeks. Like, nothing is chasing you. Give yourself 2 weeks to find a good niche and then jump into it. I can tell you now already, if you have a good niche, right, and you've put in the work and you found a good niche that almost perfectly fits this criteria, I can tell you now already that 80% of the work is already done. 80% of the work. If this does not correct, right, your foundation of the channel is not correct, then the channel is not gonna succeed. I've seen people and students, especially students that came to me, they've posted, for example, one of our students, he had a different coach. He posted for 1.5 years on a channel, made $50 a month, right? And it took us literally 4 months to take that channel from $50 a month to $10,000 a month simply by niching down, right? It's still in the health niche, but we niche down. All right. So next up, your video topics are trash. People, you need to think like this. Like, there is not just supply and demand in niches, but also in video topics, which most people skip. Most people think, okay, I found a good niche. Now the work is completely done. The next 15% of that 100% is your video topics, right? You really need to dig into the topics and make sure that you create videos on topics that have not been covered 100 times on YouTube, right? And if you do, I always have a rule that 80%, when I, for example, find a topic, right? 80% of what I do for that video is exactly what my competitor has done, what is proven to work. And then I add my own 20% to make it a new and a unique video, all right? So this is super, super important. Have a look always, like once you find a topic, just give it a quick search in Google, in YouTube search, and you will already see like, hey, how does it look? Like, have 100 people already created a video about this topic or not, right? Super important, all right? Like I said, this is around about 15% of your success. The niche is around about 80%. I would really say 80% for that. And then the next few things are the rest of the 5. So your videos are not long enough. I always tell my students to always post longer videos than our competitors. So if your competitor video is 10 minutes, right, you times that by 1.5, right? And that would equal then to a 15-minute video you would have to create. Why? Because YouTube is going to reward the person that can keep the viewer on YouTube for the longest amount of time. That's how YouTube makes money, right? And that's why we always want to do longer videos than our competitors. And yes, I've seen comments already of people saying, yeah, but my videos weren't longer than my competitors, still performed really well. It happens. But your chances are higher if you create longer videos, because then you have, very simple, you have a competitive advantage over your competitors, which is really important, especially if you're just starting out. All right. So make sure to implement this rule of times 1.5. Really important. All right. Then your video packaging sucks. And this is also something I see with so many people. Now, what is a good thumbnail? What is a good title? That's the question probably everyone asks themselves. Is a Mr. Beast thumbnail good? What is a good thumbnail? A good thumbnail and a good title is very simply whatever works. You can write this down on a piece of paper in your niche. All right? Whatever works in your niche, do not reinvent the wheel. Just do the exact same thing as your competitors. Obviously, don't copy and paste it, but do something extremely similar. Like, take over the format of those thumbnails and titles. Really try to analyze, hey, what specific patterns do they have? What specific title patterns do they have? What formats are they using? What font are they using? Really dig into these things and make sure that your thumbnails and your titles are actually good and that they are actually good for that specific niche. All right. There are niches, for example, where they have like 30 words in the thumbnail. And the normal person or the normal YouTube coach would tell you like, hey, 30 words in a thumbnail is absolutely trash, but these people are making so much money with that. That's why I always say, don't reinvent the wheel, just do whatever works in your niche. This is super important and most people do not see this, all right? Don't think you're the most smartest person on the world and try to change up things. Just do whatever works in your niche, all right? Super important. Lastly, you have a bad channel. Now, for the people who don't know, shadow bans on YouTube are real. Now, how exactly do you see a shadow ban? So very simple. If you do not get any impressions, so if you get like under 100 impressions and you posted already like 15 videos, then I would highly recommend you guys to take those 15 videos and post them to another channel. All right. This is what I would do. Okay. And this is what we always actually do. And then nextly, make sure like to always check where these impressions come from. Do they just come from search or do they come from external? If they're only from these two, then you know like, hey, okay, my channel is probably not that good. But if your impressions actually come from here, from browse, suggested, and even if it's only 100 impressions, it's probably something else that's not good, like something on this list. It could be your niche, could be that your topics are trash, could be that your videos are not long enough, could be that your packaging sucks. So this is always something you need to, look into. I would highly recommend you guys, after this video, just rewatch this video and make a list of these things, because this is really going to help you guys to really understand why a channel doesn't work or why a channel works. So you can always go back and learn from the channels you've started to not make the same mistakes again. All right. So this was it for this video. If you guys are interested in working close with me, just check out the first link in the video description, and I'll see you in the next video.